Afternoon all. Some of you find it quite amusing and perhaps instructive as well, the recent Capablanca series on this channel for how things backfire. So let's continue on that and let's have a look at a game Capablanca played against Becker. And I think the theme is here of how a mating battery can backfire. Before we get into the game, a quick intro on Becker. He was born 1896 in Vienna, Austria. He was awarded the IM title in 1953. He was joint Austrian champion in 1925, that's 4 years before this game that I'm about to show you. Second at Vienna 1927. And he was having some other Vienna achievements. First at Vienna 1931, 32. He was first with Karlsbad at 1934 in Linz. First at Vienna 1935. His greatest international tournament was actually in the same tournament. This game is played Karlsbad 1929, which Nimzovich won. So in this tournament he came fifth with Max Ervra and Milan Vidmar. So let's have a look at this game. So d4 from Capablanca, and Becker played d5. c4, e6. After knight f3 we see knight d7, knight c3, knight g f6, and now Capablanca plays bishop f4. We see d takes c4, e3, and now knight d5, and maybe one would be tempted to move this bishop. Let's have a put on a kibitzer here. Capablanca actually, with his judgment here, again, he doesn't really sometimes mind having double pawns, and he actually plays bishop takes c4 here. If white did try and avoid the double pawns, I think this might be an inferior move, at least from an engine perspective. Avoiding double pawns is inferior here. Black could continue, for example, knight 7 to b6. And here, in order to win this pawn, let's go with bishop takes c4. But either knight takes c3 or knight takes c4 is an okay position for black, really. So what Capablanca did is really keep a lot of pressure going by accepting double pawns here. In this position, he just played bishop takes c4. He's maintaining a small nagging edge. He's getting dynamic pressure down the e file when black takes on f4. So e takes f4. It looks a little bit horrid, but this pressure down the e file is significant. There's one downside though, again, with bishop d6 shown that to protect the pawn, some compromise has to be made to square weaknesses, light square weaknesses with g3. And if the white king's going to castle on the king side, you can imagine that this diagonal could be a very, very tempting battery to try and mate the white king down. So let's see what happens. Knight f6, white castles kingside, black castles kingside, queen e2, and we see b6. So the start of a battery here with the bishop, and if it's joined by the queen later, we get both pieces exerting potentially menacing, deadly pressure down this diagonal. Is Capablanca worried? He plays rook fd1, bishop b7, rook ac1. So just putting his rooks very nicely together here. For a moment, after a6, we see bishop d3. And now, if only the black queen could end up on the d5 square without being taken by the knight, we'd have what looks to be a very lucrative battery against the white king to try and mate the white king. And we see, for this effect, bishop b4 being employed to try and maybe take this knight, and then queen d5. Capablanca just plays knight e4 here, and that kind of carries what seems to be a weakness of the last move. It's not controlling that d5 square, and lo and behold, black plays queen d5 now. Now, an unwise choice for white, for example, knight takes f6 here, is leading to a problem. Perhaps if king g2, then black will be a bit better. There's actually a move rook takes c7 here, which might just be okay for white to sack the exchange in this position with rook takes b7. But this wouldn't be that advantageous to white. Maybe a draw actually would ensue by perpetual check. No, white has another idea in this position. He actually plays knight fg5, and we've seen a lot of these knight g5s from Capablanca recently, but sometimes they really fit the position, and it's actually really fitting the position well here to parry this potentially deadly battery down these weakened light squares, which will weaken trying to protect that double pawn with g3. So what is black doing in this position? Actually, black's position is fairly critical here already. The knight is not just protecting the knight here, it's also eyeing h7. And in fact, for example, if knight takes e4, then bishop takes e4 is a very unpleasant backfire skewer of the queen against the bishop. So if the queen goes back, we just take the bishop on b7. Or even worse, in fact, taking here is even worse. We can actually go for black's king with queen h5 here. This is crushing. So this is a terrible threat now. This idea of knight takes and bishop e4. Black tries in this position knight e8. And here there's a fantastic move that Capablanca plays, which must have shell-shocked the opponent. So how can we make this battery on our king backfire against black? Such a lucrative, tempting thing to do with the black pieces. A lot of black moves, including bishop b4, designed for this battery. The queen even sits in front of an isolated queen's pawn. In a way, it's a blockader as well. The knight seems, logically getting out of the way of the exchange, protecting c7, which is on that file there. But what does white play in this position? If I give you 10 seconds, what would you play here for Capablanca? So 10 seconds starting from now. You might want to pause the video. Okay. Capablanca plays knight takes h7. A shocking move indeed. What on earth is going on here? Well, if king takes h7, that would be terrible because of knight f6. Double check to the king here. Double check. And the king, after being forced to move, we can just take the queen. Or there might even be even stronger to go for the king first, but no, just taking the queen, and we've just won the queen for not much. So that has to be avoided. Black tries the move f5. And you might think, well, doesn't that justify the battery now? If we move the knight, then we're going to get mated on g2 or h1. Take your pick. No, but there's a very, very fine move here that Capablanca had planned. Can you spot it? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now, very, very elegant move. Okay. The very best move in the position, according to engines as well. Knight hg5. Wonderful move. Now, if f takes e4, well, actually, black was so shocked now. Black resigned. He didn't see any way out. So let's see what he must have checked out. If f takes e4, then there's two moves which are very, very strong here, in fact. Bishop takes e4 is very strong, just to win the bishop on b7. But even bishop c4 is very strong. If queen d7, we would lose our queen's bishop takes e6 check, lose the black queen. And you might think, well, is that really strong out of interest then? Okay, if queen d8, bishop takes e6 check, and it's black's king's in severe trouble. If king h8, then queen h5 is mating, that's mate. And, rook f7 is awful as well. Just taking on f7, and that's really, really crushing as well, with knight g5 check to follow. Horrible. So it's totally backfired, this battery to try and mate the white king. Completely conceptually destroyed by specific moves in the position, starting from Capablanca's fantastic knight fg5. I hope you enjoyed that one. And I'm starting to agree, a lot of things can backfire against the mighty Capablanca. Okay. I hope you enjoyed it. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.